What is going on, everyone? Casey Adams here. Welcome back to the Rise of the Young podcast. Today, we have the man, Luke the Dingo Trembath, here with us. Thanks so much for coming on, brother.
Dude, I'm stoked that we're hanging out again. We launched your podcast on Find Your Grind yesterday, and we touched base, and you were like, I'm here.
Yeah.
And now you're sitting in the office.
Dude,
so you're here.
This is my first time here in the office.
Well, yeah, it's a studio/office. It's different than the office you first came to and that you did your podcast in, but this is kind of our new creative space.
Dude.
This is the Noise Nest powered by Find Your Grind.
I love it, man. Like literally ever since we first met last year, it was through it was at the event that I did with Drama where I met Nick, and then he invited me out to the first Find Your Grind event. And then I went to the one in Arizona, and then one in LA, and just to see what you guys have created is super dope. And every time I'm in your presence, just the energy is super high. So, I mean, first off, the new office. Talk to me about it. Everyone that's listening, this is a studio, it's a office, it's a creative hub. What is this new place?
It's a full creative space. So my partner Nick Gross founded this building we're sitting in right now 9 years ago, and this used to be a recording studio. It still is a recording studio. There's a couple of rooms in there, and then as the times evolved, the building across the way, which is a much nicer studio, it's kind of become the studio hub and what we wanted to create down here. And I'll say it because it was kind of like, we met you through Drama, and I've known Drama and Rob a very long time, right? Yeah. Like Rob's been somebody I've looked up to for a long time. I was lucky enough to be on Rob and Big. I met Drama when Drama had no tattoos. He had buck teeth and used to wear like full on Ohio tank tops. So me and Nick have always just wanted to create this like space that is similar to the Fantasy Factory. We want to create that fun vibe. We want to create the energy. We want a space that anyone that can come through, and we want to pump out content here. It's relevant to Find Your Grind. We're heavily involved in music, and so this is the Noise Nest, and it's powered by Find Your Grind, which is our self-discovery platform, which you're very aware of.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. For everyone that doesn't know Find Your Grind, you guys have so many things that you guys are launching, and partnerships and podcasts. Just what is Find Your Grind for those that don't know, and what are you excited about?
Find Your Grind, self-discovery platform. We're helping the next generation find career paths and jobs of the 21st century. And that's been our motto leading up to now. But now moving from 2020 to 2030, the world's being flipped upside down right now. And I think more than ever, the displacement of jobs and where we're headed, we've got billions of people that we need to align to career paths and what's going to emerge of the future of the work. So for us, it's trying to help find out what those jobs are and then aligning people. And we like to say, Find Your Grind, lifestyle first. Like when you're a young kid, you used to, whether your dad was a firefighter, your dad was a policeman or a lawyer or build houses, whatever, typically you'd be like, oh, that's what so-and-so did in the family line. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And we've known that, over the course of, especially the last 20 years, college has changed so much. Yeah. And I think getting a 4-year degree on a degree that you're never going to use is happening more and more and more. And looking at the state of where college is at, it's for us, it's like, I think if you have a skill set, the Microsoft, IBM, Silicon Valley, the tech world, you don't need any degree to any sort. Yeah. If you're smart enough, they want you. And I think that's now going to be the forefront of what's going on in the future. Google just announced today that they're coming out with technically like a 6-month college plan that's going to be, a quarter of the cost. Our whole thing is like, if we could create a platform that IBM comes to Find Your Grind and says, hey, we know we're giving away 50,000 jobs in this amount of time, and we need them to be verified. We could do the course. The course would take 3 to 6 months, and then IBM can go through and look and say, hey, or Google can go through, or Microsoft can go through and say, hey, look, we know that they've been verified through Find Your Grind. We know they can do this, 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 and this. Now you're qualified to go work for us, and it's not putting you out of pocket. I think there are more and more people. One of the biggest, we did a charity event with the LAPD Wounded Warriors, and we got to sit with the chief of police and this group of people that are hardworking people, and asked for a raise of hands if like their hard-earned money that was told that their kids are going to get a degree and get a job has worked. 75% of those people put their hands up and said, all our kids are back home not doing anything. So it's like there's a huge gap in the system. I think that gap now is getting further and further apart. And we've always just been like lifestyle first. I'm an ex-pro snowboarder. I came to America to snowboard and was very fortunate and unfortunate. I never became an Olympic gold medalist. I never became an X Games gold medalist, but I've been in the industry since I was a teenager and was around when, we started a glove company called Grenade Gloves, which became a huge company within Zoomies and within action sports. and ended up having a TV show on Fuel TV, The Adventures of Danny and Dingo, which led to me meeting Rob Dyrdek and being on Rob and Big and Fantasy Factory and around Jeff Tremaine and the Jackass crew. And I've just been around this industry and what it's been able to give back to me. And I put my hand up and was like, hey, like I've never, I didn't graduate high school. It's not something I'm proud of, but I started working when I was a teenager and I've had all these different jobs. Not one person's ever asked me, what degree do you have? Or let me see your degree.
Yeah.
So I think moving forward is and we like to say at Find Your Grind, it's lifestyle first. What lifestyle do you want to lead? And here are the skill sets. And we have these tools and assets and product that can assess you over, a 3-4 month period. And after that assessment, we can then show you the career paths that are best suited for the skills you have. Not saying, hey, I want to be a doctor, I want to do this, and then all of a sudden they tell you to like cut open a rat and you can't see blood. Like maybe you shouldn't be a doctor.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to be a lawyer or create an economy on Mars, go to school for 9 years. Remember, we got lots of doctors and lots of lawyers, but there are all these areas that we need to like fill in the gap. And I think the American dream worked in the 50s, worked in the 60s, worked in the 70s, worked in the 80s, worked in the 90s, come the 2000s, then we see this back slope, right? There's just been this huge digress or decrease in people being aligning their degree and then having to go back and getting another degree. Getting 2 degrees is what, 8 years at minimum?
Yep, 100%.
In 8 years, how much has the world changed? How much has the world changed in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years? So there's a huge gap, and that's where we came in with Find Your Grind with our other partner, Mike Smith, who's the #1 youth speaker in the country, Nick and Natasha Gross, and the 4 of us have aligned and kind of over the last 4 years built this kind of establishment, which started in live events, and you've been to the events we did with Amazon and TikTok last year on College Festival, and that's where we started in live events, and then we ended up in this space of being able to, we saw just such a hole, and we know that there's a hole where teachers aren't familiar with what's going on in the new. We know if teachers can be there to facilitate, so we're just trying to find a simpler way for people to be able to find career paths and jobs that are best suited for them and not going down the wrong road and not getting yourself in debt or your parents in debt or whoever in debt to then end up working back at a coffee shop, which
happens all the time.
Yeah, and it's fine. I love that there are those jobs available, but having people that have master degrees working at coffee shops is a little weird. And if we don't address the situation, we're going to be in huge trouble. And especially now, we're in the middle of this pandemic. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know which way we're going. We've got like entertainment shut down. We've got all these careers that are kind of being shut down. We've got arguments now between state to state on whether kids should go back to school or not go back to school. And there's just a huge displacement that's happening. And I thought that was very interesting in some of the facts that have come out. And people that have money, you're going to see, I think veer off into tutored or homeschool, or people that can afford to do that with their kids. I think you're going to see more and more of that. And the ones that can't afford it are going to be left in the public school system, and it's just a weird time.
100%. So you're from Australia, right?
Yeah. So I grew up in a little beach town outside of Melbourne, Australia, called Mount Martha. I grew up snowboarding at a resort called Mount Buller. And snowboarding, I grew up on the beach in a tiny little beach town, and surfing, skateboarding, snowboarding, almost my things. I played other sports, but that was what I was best at. My dad grew up snowboarding. My brother was 5 years older than me and was an amazing skier. So I just grew up on the snowboarding. I think I was like 6 or 7 when I first got on a snowboard. And that was like my first love. By the time I was 11, I was junior national champion. And then by the time I was 12, 13, I was competing and traveling on a world level, sponsored by Oakley, my first ever sponsor. That's so dope. And then made it here to America, trained with the U.S. snowboard team, met up with a crew like Danny Cass and Travis Rice and Sean White. These are all people I met when we were like young teenagers.
That's so crazy.
And then Grenade formed out of Danny and his brother, and then a whole other group of us, and we were just this revolution. We were like the misfits of snowboarding. We were like a band of brothers or a group of kids that just had passion in this one thing that was snowboarding, and we kind of created this like revolution in snowboarding. And we started from making snowboard gloves, and we made awful snowboard gloves, but it was about the group of people and what we stood for. And then it ended up growing into being one of the biggest snowboard brands of that time.
Dude, I used to wear Grenade all the time.
That's cool.
Like literally in Zoomies. You guys were all over Zoomies. And I think it was in middle school. I'm 20 now. And I was in middle school, I would say, like 7 years ago or something like that. But so you came to the U.S. for snowboarding?
Yeah.
When you came to the U.S., like was it what were your goals? Was it, hey, go pro and do this for the rest of my life? Or like what was the intention?
That was it.
There?
You come to America. I came to America, and I came from what I came from. I got here and I was like, I'm never going back. Right. And that was to be a pro snowboarder. But you got to remember, in that time, this is early 2000s, I was in the hardest era to become.
Yeah.
Shaun White, Travis Rice, Danny Cass. You go down the lineup of like the group of snowboarders we were around, who are some of the best snowboarders still today, and the most recognizable snowboarders. A guy by the name of Pat Bridges handed me a microphone when I was 16. And then I hosted the Waterville Valley World Quarterpipe Championships, which is like this barge contest in Waterville Valley, which was after the U.S. Open of snowboarding. And in that small amount of time, in 2002, when we're at the Olympics, Danny, JJ Thomas, and Ross Powers swept the podium for snowboarding. It was the second year that snowboarding had been in the Olympics, but it was in Park City.
Okay.
And it was the first American sweep in 52 years. So then all of a sudden, snowboarding became mainstream.
Yeah.
We're on Wheaties boxes and these things, and corporate companies are coming after us, and it was just this whole change, and our lives changed. And in that time, I got handed a microphone. The first time I was really on TV, I hosted MTV Made when I was like 19, and that kind of gave me a main, like, walking down the street and kids like, oh my God, that's Dingo.
Yeah.
You know?
Where does the name Dingo come from?
So like there's a couple people that feel like they gave that name to me, but it comes from Hannah Beeman, Kyle Clancy, and Zach Leach. They're all three people we grew up snowboarding with. We're partying one night, and they'll call me Emu, they'll call me Ostrich, they'll call me Dingo. Dingo kind of stuck. The first full-page spread I ever come out in a magazine, Snowboarder magazine, just said The Dingo.
Okay.
So I've been The Dingo ever since then. And when I got handed that microphone, I didn't want to hear that. I wanted to be Shaun White. I wanted to be Travis Rice. I wanted to be Danny Cass. I wanted to be the best snowboarder in the world.
Yeah.
It just wasn't going to happen for me. And for Pat Bridges, the editor of Snowboarder magazine, to be able to see that, hand me a microphone, tell me something I didn't want to hear, but also in the back of my head, I'm like, I'm not going to move home because I don't want to build houses.
Yeah.
Right? And that in the back of my head, I was like, I'm not going to go home and build houses. Get handed this microphone, and I hosted the U.S. Open when I was 17 years of age, which is like snowboarding's biggest kind of event, apart from X Games. It was like the core one. Jake Burton started. I'm kind of working for Jake Burton, you know, and I hosted the U.S. Open for 6 years in a row, and I was the youngest kind of all-timer. I became like the face of Burton and their events, and then got all these other opportunities, hosted with the Grand Prix Series, which was the Olympic qualifiers, and that kind of led into to having this TV show, which is the Danny and Dingo show, and that was on Fuel TV that we had for 7 years. This all happened really quick for me. I came over here. We're still dating. Like, I'm not even 21 yet. 22 when all this has kind of happened, which made a turn for the worst. We'd had this company was doing well, and and I had been announcing I'd become this host. I had a column in Transworld. I had a column in Snowboard Magazine. I'd kind of become the unofficial voice of snowboarding at this really young age. And for me, it all went belly up. I fell into like this gnarly depression, and I didn't want to tell anyone about what I was going through. And my family, my peers, the people that work for us, everyone around is like, oh, it's Dingo, he's doing great. I always want people to feel great. And I fell into this hole where I was dark, and rather than expressing what I was going through, I hid it. And I hid it up, and I bottled it up for like a year and a half until I came home one day and ate a bunch of pills and tried to black out, ended up, a girlfriend at the time found me, ended up in the hospital, woke up, and had to deal with this immense pain because I had been living every day, going to film a TV show, going to do everything I was doing, and to the eye of everybody else, I put on a bit of weight, so that was noticeable there. Some people had sent me to counselors, but I just didn't want to acknowledge the situation. And then I really had to acknowledge the situation after I tried to kill myself and woke up in the hospital and blacked out the whole thing. They brought me back to life. It was just a moment where I still didn't want to face it at that time.
Damn.
But like, people didn't realize that like the pressure I was putting on at a young age, the pressure that I was going through, and the shit I was dealing with to end up like that. And I just wish back then that I wasn't so embarrassed about what I was going through, and that I would have stood up and like not made such a painful, because I should have been living the time of my life, but during the time of my life when I was a kid, it was the most painful time because I didn't feel like I had anyone to turn to. You got to understand, like, I've been living on my own since I was 15 years of age. Yeah. That's a huge weight on its own. And that's why I see so much in you of me. And like, I know what you're going through, and I know there's these peaks and valleys, but it's just your story. And then even like the stuff you did for drama back in the day, that's the stuff Rob did for me when I was a kid. And you're a go-getter. And after spending that little bit with you and seeing how far you've come in the last year and a half, how long we've known each other, it's mind-blowing to me. So it's like I see a lot of me in you, and that's why I'm here. I'm always going to support you. And I'm like proud. I see the stuff you're doing. And I'm like, it makes me proud because I did the similar things when I was your age. I put myself out there. I failed a bunch, but I was still putting myself out there, and it worked. You know what I mean? Like you said,
100%.
like you said, I had no other options. I had no other options. It was either do what I did or I was going to move home and get a real job. And where I grew up, most of my friends are plumbers or builders, which is fine. I love them and what they're doing. But like, I couldn't have done that. Yeah. Like, I don't have that driving me to wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning and hustle like that. It was just not in me. So, I went through some super hard times to get to where we are today. And that was all pre-Find Your Grind, It was like after the TV show ended in like 2013. And then I moved out to Malibu, and then we offloaded Grenade. So for the first time in my life, I really had like a clean cleanse slate of like what was going to go on in my life. And I've known Nick since...
I was about to ask, how did you meet Nick?
I met Nick in 2007, I think. And then Nick was sleeping on my couch in like 2007, 2008 when we were younger here. And Nick was on...
TV show, right?
Yeah, he was on Laguna Beach, and then the Danny Dingo show. So we had the similar filmers. So that's how we met up by one of our by one of our filmers had linked us, and so we'd met, and then we'd spent a bit of time apart, and when everything set for me, I moved out to Melbourne. I was like, what do you want to do in your life? And that's when I met Mike Smith. I met Mike Smith at Ryan Sheckler Golf Tournament in 2012 or 13.
Okay.
And Mike's taking pictures of me, and I was to Ryan's mom, and I was like, Gretchen, who is this kind of like weirdo who kind of looks like me taking pictures? He'd won a competition. He'd won a competition to come to Ryan's golf tournament, and funnily enough, he did this putting competition and at the Ryan Sheckler's golf tournament, and he won, I think it was $50,000 for his charity. And it was like literally Ricky Fowler and all these people, like Ricky Fowler, like literally helped him putt into, and I was, and at the time, I'd been going through what I'd been going through, and I wanted to voice my opinion to young kids. And Ryan's mom, Gretchen, was like, hey, like, you should go see Mike speak. So I went and listened to Mike speak. That was at a high school in Huntington, and I watched him transform a room for 11th and 12th graders, and he made the cool kids uncool and the uncool kids cool. And I was like, man, I don't know what you're doing. But I got on a plane and went to Lincoln, Nebraska, a place I'd never heard of.
Yeah.
And then started going to school with him. And I started telling my story about depression and my suicide attempts. And at that time, I was able to walk into a high school and kids like, oh my God, it's Dingo from Ridiculousness.
Yeah.
And kids knew, but I was there to tell a story, a dark story. And every time I was able to tell my story, I was able to make a connection with 1 kid, 2 kids, 10 kids. But what I realized is we're all the same, and we just needed a voice. So I slowly started becoming a voice and getting my pain out. But it was like therapy for me. Yeah. It was like me being able to voice my opinion to young kids that are going through the same stuff. We all just want to be heard. So it started with that, and Mike was doing these amazing events, and then Nick and Natasha had been doing the stuff here locally in LA through the foundation. Yep. And I kind of linked the two of them and was like, hey, look, I think we need to form a super company here. Yeah. Let's take this nationwide, let's take this globally. And then the Find Your Grind tour went out on 2017 when we went out and we had the tour bus. And we were, in front of, I think, it was like 250,000 kids in that year. And we were just doing live events. And then we started hiring people within the space. And then slowly, been working on building this product. The new product will come out this year. But yeah, up until last year, it was events in high schools and events in colleges with the partnership with Amazon and TikTok. So that's so dope. It's been a wild ride, you know, of this like up and down. But for me, it always kind of made sense. Like as a young kid, I had everything happened so quickly, and it wasn't like I set out for it. I came to America to be a pro snowboarder, and it happened, but I wasn't the best snowboarder, and all these things just kind of veered off, and I was announcing snowboard competitions, and then ended up on TV, and then stayed on TV, and had this like massive run on TV, and was just fortunate enough to be around Derek and be around Tremaine and be around these people that like had my back, but for me to always continuously kind of grow, and I think there's been phases of I've made a lot of mistakes. I've done wrong, and I've been able to come back and like make up for whatever I've done wrong. And now I feel like I used to be insecure with my own skin. I used to like not like myself, and I think that's half the reason why I ended up depressed and suicidal.
How did you get through that? Like, what was the
getting through that was like waking up in the hospital and being like, God, it's a doctor.
Yeah.
And then that's the lowest point, because then you've got to talk to your family. Then you've got to talk to people. And then you've got to go to these therapy classes. And then you've got to and you kind of, for a while, you feel like an outsider because your head's still not right. Yeah. And it wasn't until I started speaking to kids about trying to commit like my suicide attempt and what I'd gone through, that I started to get better. And as I've gotten older and the more I do with, in education and with kids, the more I'm more secure about who I am and not trying to be someone else. You get it. It's like,
absolutely,
being around like, derelict of these people. And sometimes you just wish you had but you've got to realize the power that you have. And it's like, never try and be somebody you're not. You can look at Derek, or you can look at whoever you want. You take the skill, Ryan Seacrest, whoever it may be, Little John. You take the best skill. You take skill sets from them, and add that to you. But don't try and be them. Never try and be someone else. Be the best you can be, and take skill sets or things you like about other people or characters. But don't try and be someone you're not.
Totally. Where did Monster come into the picture? I'm actually, we're drinking some Monsters right now. You got the hat on, like. Monster, I know it. Like, they're, when it comes to the partnership that you have with them, where did that come into the picture?
So I'm one of the longest running ambassadors for the company. I did my first deal with the company in 2006, and I was just an ambassador, snowboarder, TV guy.
Yeah.
And then it went into like big TV guy, and it was around the time like when Jackass and really what Bam and Dietrich were doing was infiltrating brands onto television.
Yeah.
So I just kind of mimicked what Rob was doing, and he kind of helped me go through it all. And I took Monster into this TV space, and as I grew, I kind of helped them grow. And it's weird. It's one of the biggest companies in the world. And here in America, we're the number one energy drink brand and have been for some time. And as the company's grown, I think I've been able to maintain a cornice to it, and I treat it like it's my own brand. And it's the way that this, like, from the CEO all the way down, it's like the Monster, like the feeling you get or the feeling I give you about Monster is the same feeling they're gonna give you. When I first met Rodney Sachs, the CEO of Monster, he sat on the ground and talked to me, and I was like, whoa, like, what's this guy doing sitting on the ground talking to me? And I'll never forget that. And I've been able to take that and do the same for other people. Never think you're bigger than what you are, right? And I've always seen about Monsters. So they took such good care of me when I was younger, and it transformed into it that, like, for now, being able to still be a brand ambassador, we did the title sponsorship for NASCAR like 3 years ago. Nobody wanted to buy it, but I put my hand up and I became the ambassador for Monster Energy to NASCAR. And next thing you know, I'm living in the middle of America. I'm traveling from racetrack to racetrack, waving the flag at the Daytona 500. The first Daytona 500 we won with our driver Kurt Busch, and I'm literally with the president of the company. I'm with Gronk and me, and we're on stage and freaking confetti everywhere, and like it's just a weird. But like as we've grown, I've been able to maintain that cornice to like what Monster Energy is. And, we started in action sports. We're always going to be part of action sports, but we've grown, you know what I mean? Like, we're the leader in action sports and motorsports, but we've gone into UFC. Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes is now ours. We have Tiger Woods. We have Gronk. We have all these amazing, but everyone that we represent, it's about us. Like, if you look at, Tiger Woods is Monster Energy. Come on. Yeah. It's like, if there's any golfer that should be a part of it, same as football. How do we go into football? Oh, yeah. We get Rob Gronkowski. He's the perfect fit for Monster Energy on football, and 100%. It's like these people are going to be lifelong people, a part of like what we're doing, and they fit into the brand. They are Monster Energy. So it's like, I got very lucky, but I also worked really hard, and I've done a lot for the sales program over there, and you've got to realize, like, without the Monster sales team, there is no Monster Energy marketing. So I spent a lot of time in sales and understand that, and it's just this world that I've kind of understood, and I'd say, like, I'm a bit of a Monster Energy encyclopedia. So, the brand, the high ups are always going to like that, and I'm going to tell people how it is. I'm not going to shy back. You know.
What have you learned from since you were 21, switching from not only snowboarding but now running brands and scaling brands? Like, what is the key to building a strong brand? I know that you guys have done that so well at Find Your Grind, and just the way you and Nick and the entire team moves, like, it's different than anything I've seen before when it comes to the perception and the authenticity that you guys have. Like, what do you think you guys do differently that separates you from other brands?
I think, like, you've got to fail. You got to continuously fail to move forward. Right. But like, I think for us in the education space, we're the most relevant in the education space to any company that's ever done anything in education.
Totally.
But that comes from the background. I'm action sports, he's music, and you tie all that in, and we're culture. We are culture. Like anyone that sees a Find Your Grind product or a Find Your Grind mentor video or anything, you're like, wow, like that's cool.
Yeah.
And that's what we are, forever cool and relevant, which no other education company's ever been able to do. So for us to walk into the space and like, kids today, and you get it, you're one of them. You can see through the bullshit straight away. If someone's trying to sell you something or somebody's trying to do something like irrelevant, you guys, it goes straight over. It goes straight over.
Don't even pay attention.
You don't want anything to do with it. So for us to be core and relevant in that space, that's just what we are. We've walked the line.
Yeah.
You know, and so for us to be so deep in the trenches of music industry, entertainment industry, sports industry, like any of that, that's us. We got that. You know, and we're just pushing forward on everything else. So I think we're in a space where we're so relevant and on top and on point. We also lived it. You know what I mean? Like I was never meant for college, but look at me. I've never had a degree, but I've worked in so many different fields and all these different industries. So it's like I just want to be able to give back and find the right home. If you want to go that lifestyle if you've got a lifestyle that you want to lead, we're going to point you in the direction and find out what's best suited for you and how you can get there.
What's your thoughts on, colleges maybe not reopening with you guys doing live events? I know I was at a couple of them last year, but how have you guys pivoted during the last 5-6 months?
Well, we've got Future Ready coming out. So Mike Smith's got an 8-week program that's going to be a virtual class over 8 weeks. And it's tough, like when are we going to do our next live show at high schools or in colleges? I don't have an answer for you, like I just spent a weekend away with a bunch of big musicians and there's nothing slated anytime soon.
Like touring, all that sort of stuff.
Nothing touring. It's over. Like when are we gonna throw a rager on a college campus? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So
we've
just had to adapt, and we're gonna do these virtual events, and we're gonna continue to create these products that can be learned in home. I don't, right now, like there's this argument of like, should schools go back? Why? Like, will they? How will they? How will it work? And as of right now, in a whole, like. I don't think they should.
Yeah.
I don't see how they can.
Yeah, it's a crazy time, bro.
Right?
Literally. I know like they had some schools where they went and then they sent them back, and it's like that was this whole back and forth conversation within all the colleges, and
it's a weird thing cuz like they've got college football back in training, but that's a money play, right? Like that's like they need that. On the educating part, 3.9 million kids graduated college this year. Imagine being a college graduate of 2020 and trying to go into the workforce right now while the workforce is getting slammed.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do?
All my friends and my brother's friends, it's like they're literally, I'm watching them on social media and checking in with them, and they're just shook. Like literally, you couldn't have predicted this. You know what I'm saying?
And then imagine if you got a degree in an industry in hospitality or travel or something.
Yeah.
Like, how do you even, that means the last 4 years of your life was completely wasted. You don't even know when that industry is going to bounce back. And I think the landslide on America, to be honest with you, I think come Q1 of 2021 is going to be the biggest corporate layoff we've seen ever.
Yeah.
It's like we're still not at the peak of what's going to happen, I believe, in Corona. We're in war times.
Yeah. Do you go back to Australia a lot?
I mean, I used to.
Yeah,
we got a family back there, and that's home. And usually I do 3-4 trips throughout the year there. Okay. And this year, I don't even know, like, to get back in Australia right now, you've got to go through military guard. And if you fly in, you're in a hotel under military guard for 14 days before they let you loose.
Dude, I was in Sydney in February.
Yeah.
Like, second week of February, I went there for like 5 days, and we went to Bali. But I've never been to Melbourne.
So where Melbourne, the hometown I'm from, where my mom is right now, is you're not allowed to go 5 miles away from your home.
No way.
You're allowed to go out once a day to get food or water, like food or exercise.
Is that locked down?
5 miles, unless you're an essential worker, like insanity. For 6 weeks. For 6 weeks.
All your family's out there?
Mm-hmm.
That's wild.
Yeah.
When do you think you'll be able to see them again?
I don't know.
That's insane.
It's insane, right?
5 miles. Why are they?
I don't know. I don't know. They came up with some weird rule. It's
insane.
actually 5 kilometers. So it's I don't know.
Wild.
So it's like people are like it's so bad here, but people need to realize that it's bad everywhere. Everyone's kind of dealing with these same problems.
When it comes to this, new space we're at, what are you excited about? Because I know at the last office I was at, I would always come in and it's just, like I said before, high energy. So many different projects are being worked on, awesome team members. But with this new, what do you call it? What's the correct term for this entire building or
it's
setup?
A creative space.
Creative space. Like, what are you excited about with it now that you guys just launched?
To be honest, I want to, I'm really excited to start pranking people in here. That's like what I'm most excited for is like to really start pranking people.
Give me an example. What do you mean?
Like imagine if like you got some people sitting here working, right, and then somebody's like, oh crap. Is that it standing over there? And then there's like it's like somebody standing in a costume, like standing over there. Yeah. And then the next thing you know, like somebody's like, whoa. And then like it's like in the parking lot, and like how do you get in here? And then like he's banging. Like I really want to scare people.
Okay.
I want to get prankster with it.
I don't know. I was not expecting that. Is that what you guys did at the old office?
No, we haven't done that. So like this is a new idea I have here to scare the shit out of people.
Holy shit! Well, I'm looking around like as you're saying that, I'm like, am I about to get slimed? Like what's about to happen?
Yeah. So I think we want to bring the fun out. I want people I think we're gonna. You could come here and there could be a boxing ring out there, and we may make you stand, go 2 for 2. There could be a sumo wrestling suit, and you got to like sumo wrestle to get in here or something.
Okay, dude, how does work get done with all that happening?
It gets done. You just got to stay a little longer.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
100%. That's so dope, man. When it comes to the future of not only Find Your Grind, but you as an individual, like looking into the future, you've had so many different verticals throughout your career with snowboarding and hosting and TV and education, like. As you look in the next 20 years, is there different industries that you want to get involved with that you're not currently into right now?
Right. So there's 19 core industries, right, within the world, right? And I think that where we're at now, my goal is to figure out our goal as Find Your Grind is to figure out what is the industries that the future needs the most, and let's figure out how to get the most kids qualified and educated in those spaces to go into the workspace.
I love that.
Yeah.
For kids listening that are, debating college and their future in a sense, like if they're coming across Find Your Grind, what's the best thing they can do to stay in tune with what you guys are building?
Right, so everything on there is the sign-up's free, the mentor videos are free. You sign up and you take these assessments and just find out who you are. Like our job is to find out who you are. You do the assessments and we will show you your best skill sets. Then we will show you the careers that are best suited for your best skill sets. And then here are the opportunities with professional mentor videos laid to it. So it's more about your experience on Find Your Grind to be different than my experience. They're two totally different people that come from two totally different worlds. And our goal is to have everybody have their own experience within the platform.
That's so dope.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the podcast. Obviously, our show launched yesterday, which was super dope.
Yeah, you've been on a tight season, man. It was John Feldy, Travis Mills, Prince Jackson, Michael Jackson's kid. We got Damian Manda coming up, who owns the nonprofit, the Anti-Poaching Foundation.
Okay.
He was in The Game Changers, the vegan documentary, military guy. He's coming up, and then Tony Hoffman, another speaker in high schools, who's an amazing human. You're going to be the end of the storytelling of it, and the new season we start shooting here in September, and that's another thing where we just want to pump. We want professionals coming throughout this building, and we're going to have the conversations on what the future of their industry looks like. So that's the next step to the Find Your Grind podcast.
That's dope.
Future ready conversations with professionals on what the future of their work looks like.
That is so dope. And for everyone that doesn't know about the podcast, what is it called? And what was the core mission when you guys launched? Because obviously I'm in the podcast industry. I love it. Just what was the vision for when you guys launched the show?
The vision for the Find Your Grind podcast was pretty simple. It was about to storytell. It was about to find out where you come from, who you are, and how you got to where you got to.
Yeah.
And that was the first 2 seasons. And now we know that it's more important than ever be in 2020 and speaking to these professionals and giving information of what does the future of your industry look like. That's what we're going to put out.
That's so dope.
Yeah.
Well, I got one more question before we wrap up, and that is just Dingo, I should say, for the people listening. Where's not only the best place for people to stay in tune with what you got going on, but personally, outside of work and business, what are you excited about in your personal life?
Man, my personal life, my goal is to buy a 1978 Toyota Land Cruiser, and a bunch of land in Montana. So when I get that, that's my goal. That's my goal.
Okay.
Find Your Grind. It's Find Your Grind YouTube. We're starting to pump out a lot of content there.
Yep.
And that's where everything at Find Your Grind YouTube, findyourgrind.com, Find Your Grind on Instagram. But work stuff. YouTube and us putting out the new content, the podcast. You can find us on Spotify.
Yep.
We're on iTunes. We're on YouTube and that stuff. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
Well, Dude, the Dingo, I'm excited that we got this done, my man. Thanks so much for coming on the show. This is a good time.
Casey, this is good, dude. I feel like, I'm following Larry King. I saw you did Doug Allen.
Yeah.
Made Entourage Ball, two of my favorite.
I literally I had coffee with him this morning.
See what I'm saying? You're like, I'm going to start hanging out with you more. You need an assistant or something, man?
Dude, please. Absolutely. All right, Dingo. Thanks so much for coming on, brother.
Thanks, dude.